Welcome back to the Jeff Crilley Show. This next segment is really powerful, and just in terms of reaching out to someone half a world away. My next guest is Allison Schlack. She is the founder and executive director of Ndoto. That's spelled N as in Nancy, D as in dog, O-T-O, and the website is ndoto.org. Welcome to the Jeff Crilley Show.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Okay, so for those who've never heard of Ndoto, what is it?
Ndoto is a nonprofit organization that seeks to empower people to transform their own communities. And all of the communities that we work in are communities that are largely forgotten. They're usually quite poor. The people are facing struggles that I couldn't believe unless I had seen it with my own eyes. And so the idea is that we get in there and we empower people and train them and really just set them free to use their God-given potential to change their own communities.
Tell us how this started for you.
So when I graduated from college, I just felt like God was calling me to Africa. I'd had an unexplained love for Africa since I was in high school. And one of the things that was distinct about it was I wanted to live among the people. I had read, I'd heard, I'd visited, and it was always people from the outside coming in and saying to people, this is what's wrong with your community, or this is what you need. And so I felt like, what would happen if I went and lived among people and struggled the way they struggled? I mean, no electricity, no running water, whatever it took, and learned things from their perspective and won some trust. How would that change the organization that we would build or the work that we would seek to do? And so you can imagine, as a 22-year-old single recent college graduate, organizations were not thrilled about the idea of me going to live in an African slum. And so people were denying, my requests and my applications. And eventually someone referred me to a Kenyan man who was getting his PhD in Texas, and he said he would help me. And so with only a 3x5 picture of the people that I was looking for, I boarded a plane to a country and a city that I had never heard of.
Wow, that is such a cool story. So do you remember that first trip, and what was it like? Was it a kind of a culture shock? Was it different than what you expected?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was terrifying. I wasn't going for a week or two. I was going for 3 months, which now, all of these years later, 3 months doesn't seem like a long time. But, I mean, those first 3 months, to leave the U.S., to leave my family and friends, to move into a place where I know no one, and I'm moving in with a local family, and we are working every day in the most dangerous, most difficult slum in that city. I was so unprepared for what I was about to see and experience. I mean, it literally altered the course of my life. But I had a long layover. What I remember the most is that I had a 12-hour layover in London. And that's when I was really starting to contemplate, like, am I just really a fool? Is this really what I want to do? And anyway, but it was life-changing.
Well, was it? I imagine you could read books or watch movies or watch videos, but it doesn't do justice to, what you actually experience when you get there. Right.
I mean, I remember the heat. I traveled in February, and that's the end of summer. And so I remember the heat, and, there's no air conditioning. There wasn't a fan. And so I remember that being one of the factors. And one of the things I'll never forget is 2 weeks after I arrived, the neighbor's baby died of malaria. And that's when I knew, like, this is not a joke. This is, there's some real things happening here. And so at that point, it was like, whatever we have to do, we'll just do. I mean, whatever we need to do.
And you started this organization right after that trip?
No, it took a few years to really build the kind of relationships and gain some deeper understanding. I mean, it's easy, like I said, to go and evaluate initially what you think the problems are, but it's quite a different story when you start to realize, okay, there's all these people with these gifts, and they're so bright, and they have so many great ideas, but maybe they lack the capital to start the business, or they lack the infrastructure to set something up. So it actually took several years, and I'm glad for those years. They were difficult, but that helped lay the foundation to make what we do today successful.
Okay, let's talk about what you do today, because the organization has grown quite a bit. What you mentioned, not giving a fish, but teaching someone how to fish. Do you have a favorite story of a person that you've helped?
Yeah, I mean, we have several. We're blessed at this point to have more than 300 kids in our sponsorship program from preschool through university. So these are kids that would not be able to go to school if it weren't for this opportunity. But there's one young man that I had been thinking about, and his name is Dan, and his father passed away. He was from a polygamous family, so that means you've got many wives, many children. And when the father passes away, it's quite difficult to even figure out how you're going to feed all of those people. And he was very bright, but without the sponsorship help, he would never have been able to complete his education. And as he got into school, we realized he was really gifted in math and science. And he really wanted to be an engineer. But his mother, as a local teacher, making less than, just a few dollars a day, there was no way that she could educate him. So we were able to come alongside the family. He went through the program. He was mentored and trained. And when he graduated from college, he got a job in a job market where there's a 60% unemployment rate.
Wow.
He was snatched up right as he graduated because he was not just a really gifted student. He was a really wonderful person, hardworking, diligent, never gave up, and was really seeking to not just further himself, but seek to see how he could bless others. And so he was offered 3 jobs. He took one of them, obviously, and he just bought a car.
Oh, that's so
for
cool.
People that have hardly ridden in vehicles. To own their own car is, I can't even describe how big of an accomplishment that is.
That's the kind of thing they make movies about.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
That's wonderful. So do you, if somebody wants to get involved, do you have regular trips? If somebody wants to, I guess they can write a check, but if they wanted to be there boots on the ground, can they go with your organization to a village?
They can. So every year we have visitors, and time of year and how many visitors, that changes. But yeah, we usually have April is a great time because April is a school holiday. So that means all the students are out of school and we put together fun camps and retreats. And so that's a great time for people to come where they're able to meet the students and our staff and just see firsthand what's happening in the middle of a slum community that had been largely forgotten.
Is there a kind of a mystique about Americans when you guys come over there? Is there a reputation? Do the villagers, think we all live in mansions, or what's your experience?
Yeah, no, I think so. I think there is definitely this reputation about America and people who come from America. I think there is the idea that America doesn't have many struggles or that people are not facing the same kinds of challenges. I also think a lot of people see America as like Disney World, where everything is just wonderful and happy, and so they're very welcoming. Though I've lived there for almost 15 years, and so obviously having spent all that time there, they've gotten to hear other stories and a more true picture. But they love when people visit. It's a culture that is so warm and hospitable, and so when people would travel that distance to come, people who live on a few dollars a day will throw open the door of their house and buy tea and cook a wonderful meal because it's such an honor to have someone come and visit them.
What are the most critical needs right now?
Well, for us, one of the most critical needs are people to sponsor students to go to school. The school year in Kenya starts in January, and so the end of the year as we go into the new year is always when we're evaluating, okay, do we have enough sponsors to get all of these students in school? And so we only need about 15 more, which actually isn't a lot when we've got more than 300 going to school, and sponsorship starts at just $35 a month. And so that's, I realize that's a generous gift for people to give. But for those of us that have been blessed, you could skip going out to lunch one day and in that literally be able to alter the course of a person's life.
Talk to me about drinking water, sanitation. What are the living conditions like today?
Well, where we are, they're still difficult. Electricity has come in the years that I've been there, so it was not there on a regular basis when I got there. We still don't have running water. There are taps and boreholes throughout the community where people go to get water, but that's a particular problem. Sanitation is also a problem because it's like an informal community setup. So you have houses made of mud or houses made of iron sheets, and so what happens is you'll build a toilet, like a squatty potty would be the sort of joke name for it. But so you have squatty potties, and then people share them, and so there's never usually enough.
Right.
And so there's definite need for, and we help the community along in this way, but there's definite need for a change in infrastructure and setup and making sure people have access to what they need.
Healthcare, dentistry, eye doctors. I mean, are those few and far between?
So there are hospitals, there are doctors and nurses. I would say there's been a surge in dentistry just in the last few years. Most of the people I work with have never been to a dentist, and largely many of them have never been to a proper doctor. Unless, they're blessed to be able to afford it or blessed to be a part of the program that we're in or another program. A lot of times they can't afford to do that. So they buy medicine and hope that they're able to sort of figure it out. And pharmacists are very kind and patient to try to talk with people and help them out.
When you think about this journey that you've been on, what touches your heart the most? I mean, you've told a couple of stories, and I can see, I'm watching your eyes, and they just light up when you talk about this. What touches your heart the most?
I think there's two things. One of them is that, we teach our students all the time that you're blessed to be a blessing. And I don't care if the blessing that you have is 2 pencils and you can share one with a classmate who doesn't have it, but that we're all blessed and we all have something to offer and give. And so when you are able to teach a young person that, who has been told their whole life that they have nothing to give, that they're worthless or the place they come from is worthless. And when you're able to see them begin to gain some confidence and to begin to realize that there's a calling on their life and there's some way that they've been gifted, that is life-changing.
Wow. It must give you a completely different perspective on, I guess that they call it the 1% problems. So, when you hear a friend complain that they messed up her latte at Starbucks, does it, she probably can't even imagine what you've seen.
Yeah, it is funny. I try to be gracious on wherever I am, and because people are people, and we all struggle in different ways. But yeah, it is funny. I think the biggest thing is it just puts things in perspective. So you say, okay, the latte didn't work out, or there's a little bit of traffic, but you can afford a latte, and you're driving a car on a cemented road. I mean, I think it just helps put things in perspective. But people are people, so there's grace.
I think you're amazing.
Oh, thank you.
And I want to give you a chance. I know that you're a very faith-based person, so
yes.
This is a calling for you.
It is a calling, yes.
Wow, you're amazing. So give us the website one more time.
Okay, it's ndoto.org. So it's ndoto.org.
You're awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. When we come back, you're going to meet a doctor who's on a mission to get patients off of pills by getting to the root of their pain. That's next on The Jeff Crilley Show.
You're listening to The Jeff Crilley Show on Talk Radio 1190.